Hi, welcome back to another episode of cedh Bling Builds. Today we're going to be going over featuring a blue farm deck. I like Malcolm Tymna over Sakashima Tymna because it gives me a little bit more versatility with, lets me play around the cards in my hand. Two Tymnas is fine. That's a meta call, I guess, where you're just going to be getting in with dudes on the ground. But Malcolm Tymna allows me to essentially ramp into some of these very expensive black cards that are in the deck, whether it's Ad Nauseam, Peer into the Abyss, Doomsday, Bolas Citadel, which get very complicated to cast, being so black intensive. And so the treasure really helps mediate that. So I like the versatility with Malcolm Tymna. So yeah, let's get into the tech. By no means this is a pirate tribal. Right, so if you land the Tymna first, you could get in, start drawing your cards. And if you get in with the Malcolm first, you could get in and start creating your treasure. Also, once in a while, you could come across the become very unfortunate where you can't play your Sakashima, right? You just don't have the blue for whatever reason. But you can play your Tymna. No, you can't play your Tymna for whatever reason because you can't find the black or the white. You can't find the white, right? That's a problem we've all encountered. So then Sakashima is just as dead, because you really want to copy the Tymna. You don't want to copy anything else. Whereas Malcolm could just probably get in earlier than the Tymna, and then when the Tymna lands afterwards, you're going to start drawing your cards and creating treasure. It's overwhelming. So we have a Doomsday. Let's go over some of these Doomsday piles. Some are better than others. There's one in here that's a throwback to the 1950s with a card named Laboratory Maniac. A lot of you children don't know who Laboratory Maniac is. Laboratory Maniac is a Thassa's Oracle, but very, very slow. Very, very slow. He needs his rest. Okay. So we have our first Doomsday pile. What's important to remember with these Doomsday piles is you have to be able to, most of the time, this is my experience playing Doomsday 100 years ago in Zur decks, you have to be able to crack the pile with a cantrip. Okay, so just keep that in mind. This deck is neat because you can play a little bit riskier and play the Doomsday and then crack the pile by swinging with your Tymna and company. So just remember that little trick. So we have a Doomsday. And this first pile, we're going to play. This is in order of how you'll play the cards, stack the cards. So we'll start things off by cracking the pile, and then we'll find our gush. The gush will be played, bouncing the two islands, and you'll draw into your Git probe and your LED. You'll play the LED. You'll play the Git probe, and then crack the LED on the stack, and then the Git probe will resolve, and you'll draw a Yawgmoth Swell. Of course, your LED will make 3 black to pay for this Yawgmoth Swell. You'll play the Yawgmoth Swell. You'll play the LED, crack it again for triple blue. You'll play the Git probe to draw your Laboratory Maniac, play the Laboratory Maniac. At that point, you can either recast the cantrip that should be in your graveyard that got the whole thing started, or recast the gush. This gush pile becomes complicated, right? Because we're in a triple color deck in a tainted pact universe. So finding the blue is finding the islands to bounce to play the gush for free is not as simple. you know, as you could imagine, it used to be many years ago. Thassa's Oracle changed everything. This is why Doomsday is not played anymore, because this Gush pile is really nice. They're better piles, so I take it back. It's not really nice. It's okay. But Doomsday High Tide is super dead because Thassa's Oracle is so much better, and Tainted Pact is a card that exists. Yeah, and then the Laboratory Maniac, you'll draw into empty library and you win the game. Why Laboratory Maniac? It's a creature that could get value with the Tymna, I guess. That could be a thing. And then we have our second pile. This is a predict pile, where for 1 of blue at instant speed, you'll name a card. You'll mill the card from a target player's library, and if you name it right, you draw 2 cards. If you name it wrong, you draw 1 card. Predict is pretty neat on its own, sometimes, in very scarce situations, where you'll have the opponent who uses an instant speed tutor that isn't Vampiric Tutor, and then you could just name it and go plus off of it. Or you could just name what you think they put on the top of the deck with their Vampiric Tutor. Either way, they're going to lose it, right? So this pile, you'll play the Doomsday, crack the Doomsday pile. Into the pile you go. You'll predict. You're going to name Thassa's Oracle. So you're going to mill the Thassa's Oracle and draw 2 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5th card can be whatever, really. Actually, this order doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. You have to arrange it according to what you have in your hand, according to what the 5th card could be. The 5th card could be protection, like a Pact of Negation or something. Now, let's remember, we're in a blue farm deck, and once in a while, the Thassa's Oracle is going to win because we have the devotion to blue, right? We're so used to playing Thassa's Oracle Consult, where we just Thassa's Oracle into an empty library, but that isn't always the case. Don't forget about that, fellas, that you can still win with tiny Thassa's Oracle Doomsday piles, solely because you have devotion to blue is high enough. You can unearth and just name, find the Thassa's Oracle. Unearth is nice in this deck. There's no reanimate, but Unearth is just fine because I think everything in here is very tiny, very tiny. Knight's Whisper is part of another Doomsday pile. There are a ton of these draw 2 cards, which will all do the trick. Again, this is for different piles, and where you can just Thassa's Oracle, and just the devotion to blue alone will win you the game. Bolas Citadel helps. Many of these Doomsday piles, the card itself is just bananas, right? But it also, if you play it before the Doomsday, right, if it's just on board hanging out when you play Doomsday, you don't need that cantrip to crack your pile. You can just start going in, and like I said, a Doomsday pile with Thassa's Oracle, the devotion to blue might be just enough to get you there. Since we have the Citadel, we're going to do Sensei's Top. Sensei's Top and Citadel is just a more convoluted ad nauseum. You could throw it Aetherflux Reservoir into the mix. I don't need that combo. But that's the thing. And since we have the top, we're going to tinker around with Counterbalance. In this deck, where the CMC is, pretty average, in when you're competing against like a higher tier decks, where maybe they're playing stacks, everything's 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. you could probably get some blind counterbalance value, but the top could just help manipulate the top decks. Yeah, the Citadel can help manipulate those top decks. And then eventually we're going to get, in Kamigawa, we get that new legendary jellyfish artifact creature, which is like a Citadel on a stick. This is a blue farm, so we'll have a creature to configure, reconfigure, or equip it to most of the time. So, and that's going to be fun. Anything to manipulate the top deck to get value from our counterbalance. And that's Oracle. So we have a Darmanic Consultation and Tainted Pact, because of course it's just too easy. Let's get into our creatures. We start things off with Daddy and all his children. We have a Ranger, Captain of Yos. Oh, Mando, right? Mando. And I guess all the... Oh, someone should do that. They should commission a Ranger, Captain of Yos and like a Ragavan, or like a Mando and Grogu. So we have a Ranger, Spectral Sailor. It's a pirate, so it gets us some Malcolm value, and then you could draw a card once in a while, which is nice, and it flies, so it's going to get in, and you're going to get Tymna value. So Spectral Sailor is really, really good in this deck. Card, I thought I had foil, but I never had foil, so I picked that up. So that's in the mail. But a Changeling Outcast. It's a shapeshifter that's unblockable, so it's a pirate that's unblockable. It gets Tymna value, it gets Malcolm value. Too easy. Esper Sentinel, because why not, right? Drawing cards is nice. Hope of a Gearper. It has flying, so it has that evasion to get a Tymna value. And then you just shut off the one opponent when it's time to combo off. Grim Hireling, since we're swinging with dudes, Grim Hireling is a nice inclusion, and the treasures help tremendously to ramp up for those thick black cards. And then the shitty creature removal is fine. Adrenaline Magistrate. Yeah. So we're getting to our bad boys. Adrenaline Magistrate, sure, slow down one opponent. If you're ahead of them. Opposition Agent, Dorothy Voidwalker, and Grand Abolisher. Easy peasy. Lemon squeezy. And then our counters package, we have Silence, which is the best counter of them all. Miscast, Spell Pierce, Dispel, Swan Song, Fluster Storm, Mental Misstep, Fierce Guardianship, Pact of Negation, and Force of Will. Of course, your counters package could change depending on your matchups. Maybe you have to go more heavy with the spot removal, so it's just a meta call at this point. We have our cantrips. Very important, again, to crack your Doomsday pile, because there'll probably be Doomsday-ing plenty when running this deck. So if the team is not on board to do the battle, the combat Kraken, then just traditional cracking the pile is fine. We have a OG Brainstorm, OG Preordain, OG Ponder. The Get Pro was featured earlier, part of our clunky circa 1980s Doomsday pile. Our spot removal, we have a Chain of Aver, Winds of Rebuke, and a Cyclonic Rift. Again, depending on your matchups, you could get rid of some of the counter magic for spot removal. There's plenty in Esper. And then our rituals, we have a Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, Call in the Weak, and the Reign of Filth. Some lists have cut these two, but they're crazy. Shh, they're crazy. Stupid. It's so stupid. You want to be able to land your PETA, your Adnos, your Bolas Citadel, for fuck's sake, as soon as possible, and the rituals always help. Our tutors, we have Enlightened Tutor, a Mystical Tutor, and a Vampiric Tutor. We have Imperial Seal, and Diabolic Intent, Demonic Tutor, Freighter's Grasp to grab opponent stuff, whether it's completing my Thoracle combo or something else, spot removal, board wipe, anything you want. And then our wheels, we have a Windfall and a Time Twister, of course. And then our Peer into the Abyss and Ad Nauseam, of course. And no Angel's Grace. I think a lot of lists have dropped Angel's Grace ad nauseam a long time ago. Because if the CMC, average CMC in your deck is low enough, you're just going to get a lot of ad nauseam value on its own without the need of an Angel's Grace. Our enchantments, we have Aristic Study, Mystic Remora, and Necropotence. Our utility artifact, we have a Wishclaw Talisman, and then our rocks, we have a Jeweled Lotus, Arcane Signet, Felwar Stone, a Mox Opal, Chromox, Mox Opal, Mox Diamond, Mana Vault, Soul Ring, Mana Crypt. There are no other, the other talismans are not in the deck. I just couldn't find the space for them, right? That's the problem with these farm decks. Like, you gotta go in with the creatures. So you don't have space for artifacts, or something has to be sacrificed, for the sake of the creatures. For the children. Our lands, we have all 9 fetches. Now don't forget, we're doing Doomsday piles that involve Gush. So, sometimes you can't play that pile because you don't have the islands, right? So let's count our islands. We have a island and Snow Island. We have a swamp and a snow swamp. We have a watery grave. We have a hollow fountain. We have a godless shrine. We have underground sea. We have a tundra. And we have scrubland. So our island count is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That makes a Gush very inconsistent for Doomsday pile. Maybe you just get like generic Gush value in the game at some point. Probably not. We have a Sea of Clouds and a Morphic Pool. I didn't need the black-white other duels. It's whatever. Phyrexian Tower, which is nice. Sack a creature, help ramp a little bit. Ancient Tomb, Gemstone Cavern, Command Tower, Exotic Orchard, Mana Confluence, and a City of Abrasserino. And there you have it. You have a Tymna Malcolm, Pirate Tribal. No. There are other cards I would love to tech in this, right? Like Cedh would be neat. There's this blue horror from Dungeons and Dragons I forgot all about, which could be neat. We have that new Rat Ninja coming out in Kamigawa, which will be neat. So there are a lot of slots for no, there aren't too many flex slots, unfortunately. But there are a lot of interesting creatures that could be added to the deck. But the Changeling, by far, is sweet. It's really, really sweet. It just fits, it's right at home in this deck. It's a pirate, and it has vision for Tymna. So doesn't matter which general you have on board, the Changeling is going to get a lot of value. Anyway, that's the deck. Hope you enjoyed. Catch you next time.